Hello and welcome back. Today is going to be fun as I have another content creator who is obsessed with reality TV like myself. If you like Big Brother and or Survivor, you probably come across his channel or his videos. At the time of recording this, his channel has just over 11,000 subscribers. Absolutely incredible. And you're going to continue growing in success. Welcome to the channel, Ethanimale.
Thank you, Drew. You're making me blush already. Super stoked to be here. I mean, just like the entire idea of like why we're even chatting today is just like a Big Brother fan's like wild dream where it's like, oh, it'd be so cool. Like someone like myself, I am liking Big Brother and Survivor. So it's always like, oh, like having all the shows clash together in some sort of competitive show. And like, I watch the challenge. I'm a big fan of the challenge too. So for it to be in like that medium and pulling from all of these different shows I watch, it's like, what more could I ask for? And I get to talk about it, which is even cooler. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I couldn't think of a better person to have on the channel when talking about a show with the challenge, Big Brother, Survivor, mainly CBS shows, which I think I would consider you an expert on CBS, at least Big Brother and Survivor shows. I do want to ask, just to give some background, what is your experience with reality TV / Big Brother? When did you discover it? How long have you been watching it? And then what made you get into making videos about it?
So I started out with Survivor. My parents were pretty big Survivor fans. And then just one Wednesday night, they're like, hey, we want you to check this show out. And the first time I watched it, I was like, this is so boring. I don't like this. So they tried again 2 years later when I was a little bit older. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to like the idea of this. They started with Survivor Philippines, season 25. And that's what really got me started. I was like, okay, this is actually like super cool. Like these everyday people going onto these shows. And then a couple years later with Big Brother 16, I found that. And after like 2 episodes, I was like, okay, I'm really enjoying these types of shows. So at that point, it was like finding all those different types of reality shows that I could watch. It was super fun. And I mean, we'll get into like talking about the challenge. In terms of like making videos, I mean, for a while I was watching people like Peridium. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, just like a regular viewer. I never had any aspirations to make anything. And then one day I had like an actual dream, like not like an aspiration dream, but just a real dream of a video idea. And I woke up and I'm like, oh, that'd be pretty cool if I made something like that. And then I made it and it got like 500 views in a week. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like 500 people watch this. This is crazy. And then from there, I just kept making stuff. And I didn't necessarily have it as like, I'm going to be a person that's making these Big Brother videos or Survivor videos or anything like that. But I kind of just never stopped doing it. And it eventually just formed into what it is today.
Yeah. And you do incredible work because I'm not going to lie. I don't watch too much of Big Brother much anymore. Like the past few seasons have burned me. Like Big Brother 23, I was a casual fan. But man, when I go back to seeing like Big Brother 16 through, I would say 21. I stopped watching halfway through 21. I was like, all right, I'm kind of done. But I'd still watch like Peridium's videos. And then when you came along, I was like, oh man, this guy's doing some good work. So I started watching your videos, even though I wasn't super into Big Brother. I mean, I did try to watch All Stars and I did cover it on my channel. If I wasn't covering it,
I remember I watched your covers of, I think it was All Stars that you were covering. Yeah. It was Big Brother 22, right? So that was way before. I think that was before it was like a year before I started making videos. But I remember watching you, following along with like your updates. And I remember you even saying in one of your videos where it's like, I'm so burnt out from everything. Like, I was like, yeah, I can understand. I get that now.
It was just a lot. And I didn't even try to do any of the challenge, which I think was kind of like a sore spot for me. Cause it was like, I would rather be covering something of the challenge, but I can't do it with 3 videos and feeling like I'm so tired. Before we get into it, you did talk about that you were a fan of the challenge. When did you start getting into the challenge?
Yeah, no. So I'm sure this is like the worst answer I could possibly have, but it's from Josh, everyone's favorite challenger. I hadn't even heard of the challenge, which actually was surprising to me because I was like loving looking at all these reality shows. And I saw like a promo video, and it had Josh in it, and I was like, what is Josh doing on this show? Because I looked into it, I'm like, oh, like this like physically like demanding, competitive, like, you know, not things that I would initially describe Josh as. It piqued my interest a little bit, but I didn't actually get into it in War of the Worlds. I waited a couple seasons, but then Total Madness comes around. They introduce Jay from Survivor, which is like the other show that I loved. I'm like, okay, like now I think it's time that I give it a shot. And then, you know, 2 episodes into Total Madness, you have the Jay versus CT elimination, and that just one episode, probably one of my favorite episodes of the challenge ever, is what really got me hooked. And then since then, I've gone back. I've seen every season except for 1 through 10, which I don't have access to, and Gauntlet 3. Or Inferno 3. Sorry.
Sweet deal. Wow. So you did exactly what I did. I found the challenge in season 30. I went backwards. So I actually watched 29 and then went backwards. So before we get talking about the challenge USA, which is the main reason why we're going to be chatting today, I did want to ask you, because I know you're well versed in Big Brother and Survivor. What is your experiences, if you have any, with the other 2 shows that are featured on the Challenge USA, with Love Island and The Amazing Race?
Yeah. So The Amazing Race, I've tried to get into it, but I just can't. It's something about like, it just really hasn't piqued my interest. However, luckily there are only, I think, 3 Amazing Races on this season, and I know of 2 of them. I know the only one I don't know is Kayla Platt. So even me not like knowing anything about The Amazing Race, I at least know Leo and James. And then with Love Island, I watched a bit of Love Island 3 this past summer because one of my friends, he says it was like, oh, as a joke, I'm just going to watch 6 episodes of Love Island every week. And I'm like, okay, like, sure, I'll watch along with you. I don't think you're joking anymore though. So it got me to watch a few weeks of it. And I'm like, it's definitely like a different type of show compared to the other like Survivor, Big Brother, and The Amazing Race. But yeah. I think at the same time, they're perfect people to cast because they're built, they've got great personalities, like very athletic, entertaining. And so like, this is perfect to be able to pull them in from a show that is not really about like competing and, you know, all for the win, and as a show about, you know, love. But they're perfect people to pull in for this type of show. So I am pretty versed in the other shows, at least for some of the people that they were bringing in. Maybe not necessarily all of the show itself, but I know a thing or 2 about some of these players.
Okay, good. Because I've watched pretty much all these players' seasons, and I will tell you right now, I've watched every single episode of Love Island US, and they're still a wild card to me because they're coming onto a show that has so many different tasks, where the biggest task that they have on Love Island is like kissing Jenga or Truth or Dare. Like, you have no idea what they can do, but they do have a ton of upside because they are really strong. They're really physical. They are young as all get out. Everybody's gorgeous. So I'm like, okay, they're perfect for this show. It's just like, but can they actually do any of these tasks? Which I'm sure that a lot of them can. It's just,
I'm sure some of them won't have too many problems.
Oh, heck no. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Especially, I won't spoil anything. So let's get into some overall thoughts on the cast. So when this was announced, the Challenge USA, I'm sure that you got pinged or messaged from some of your followers, or you have like an alert on your phone. What was your initial thoughts, and were you excited once you heard some of the cast members that were supposedly leaking on to do this cast? Yeah,
so originally, like when I first heard it, and then like once like the rumors had basically set in that it was basically just CBS in like the shows that I watched, I had to keep my expectations lowered, but I couldn't help myself from being like through the roof, like this could be the greatest thing ever. And then when I saw the cast, I was definitely like, I was still very optimistic, but I was a little like quizzical. See, like, especially on the Big Brother side, where it's like, oh, like we're gonna have 9 players from Big Brother. Like, I wonder who they're gonna pull in from, and then it's like 6 of them are all from the last season, and I was like, whoa. My initial thoughts was like, oh my goodness, they're just gonna form a 6-person Big Brother alliance, like not like we haven't seen that on flagship series, like with regular Big Brother alliance. So I was like, oh great, like here we go again. I think on the Survivor side of things with the cast, it's a bit more diverse in the sense of like where, like what seasons they casted from. It's a lot more individuals, not coming in as like a group of 3, or like a easy pregame alliance sort of thing outside of just being from Survivor. And then I also think it was good to like pull in a bunch of Love Islanders. So it's like, okay, like that really adds more to the diversity of like the shows. Like you said, like it's a wild card. All of them are wild cards for how they can perform. And then the last thing is with the Amazing Race. I was like, they only picked 3 people. Like I get wanting to include it, but it's like they didn't even go halfway. They're like, okay, like we got a few extra spots. Like we'll throw these 3 in to say that they have the Amazing Race, and it just seems like a pretty big disadvantage for them coming in.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point with the Amazing Race players, because they are only 3 of them, and one of which is Kayla, who just played in the most recent season of the Amazing Race. And it's interesting because she had to run the race during the pandemic, during the lockdown. They had to have a different way to do the race. It really feels like, one, the Amazing Race has numbers disadvantage, but also her in particular, because it's like we've seen, if you go on like anybody's Instagram, like any of the Big Brother players that are on this Challenge USA cast, they have been mingling together with like Love Island, Big Brother, some of the Survivor players. And it just seems like a complete disadvantage if they've had this like time to get to know each other and commingle with each other, when some of the Amazing Race players, we have no idea, one, what they can bring to the show. They have a numbers disadvantage, and we don't know if they've even commingled with anybody from any of these newer seasons, because they are such from newer seasons, Survivor 41, Big Brother 23. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping that they can be the wild card, and maybe they can be the swing vote. You never know. I mean, that's a big thing in Survivor. Some of the times the lower numbers are the swing votes. Let's jump into some of the players and some of the cast, and let's get down to getting into some specifics. I wanted to pose a question to you. Who are you excited to see back on our TV, back on CBS for the Challenge USA?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I got a bunch of people that I'm stoked to see, but I'll try to limit it down. On the Survivor side of things, I got 2 people that I'm really excited to see for 2 completely different reasons. First, we got Tyson, who, in my opinion, is like one of the funniest people to ever go on any of these shows. Cracking jokes all the time. Like, oh my God, he's just my favorite. And then on the other side of things, I'm really excited to see Shan from Survivor 41. In like the beginning stages of the game, she was like thinking way outside the box, round after round. Every episode where like her tribe would have to go to tribal council, it was surrounding her. Like she was coming up with the plans, like the crazy plans too. It's not just, hey, we're going to vote out this person. I have the numbers. That's it. See you later. It's like, no, here, let me think about the most fun way where I ask you to borrow something, I take your advantage and then vote you out straight to your, like, she was incredible. And I'm very excited to see how that kind of translates over to the challenge, because Shan wasn't like the most physical player, but I'm excited to see if she can kind of pull some more antics on that mode, because the challenge isn't just about winning the challenges or being the strongest. The politics, the political game is, I mean, probably more important. You could be the strongest person. You get thrown into 5 eliminations in a row. One of them is going to be some type of puzzle, and you could be out right there. But if you can, just not go into elimination, that you don't need me to tell you that. you're the challenge guy. I don't need to lecture you about good challenge strategy. From Love Island, I mentioned that I watched a few weeks, and both Cache and Shannon, they were both rock stars. They were like stars in the best sense of the word. I loved watching them. They were great. I'm just super stoked to see them just as personalities again. And at Big Brother, I mean, I like Big Brother. I'm excited to see most of these players back. Particularly, this one's probably a shock to the Big Brother viewers, but David, the infamous All-Star who was the first boot on his first season, I find just so funny, unintentionally. I think he's definitely got like a lot of passion. Man, I want to see him succeed.
I'm hoping that David once got the call, he decided to watch some of the like seasons on Paramount Plus, because there was that thing of like on Big Brother not knowing how Big Brother worked, and I was like, did you even know what show? Like, I thought it was a tactic, but after a while I was like, I don't think this is a tactic.
And that's like one of the reasons why I find him so funny, where it's like, oh, he's brought back for an all-star season of Big Brother, like his second chance he gets in, and it's like, oh, I still never went and watched the show. It's like, where do you find these people? That's incredible.
You know who I think you mentioned was a huge get was Tyson. I think Tyson is a big get to bring into the Survivor players to watch this, because I will say that I play a lot of, well, I used to. I can't play it now with my schedule, and I just get too stressed out. Was these Discord orgs? I don't know if you know about them. I've played a lot of Survivor ones, and almost everybody says which Survivor player is your favorite or which Survivor player is your favorite, and almost unanimously every time it's Tyson.
Tyson.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's like everybody wants to be Tyson. Everybody loves Tyson. So I think it's like a two-edged sword, though, because if it's not good or if he is not a fan, he will start shading it. He won't sugarcoat anything. And I feel like online he's already said some stuff that isn't like putting the show in good light. But Tyson's going to take shots no matter what. Let's move into some of the players that you're shocked to see on the Challenge USA. So the list came out. You kind of looked at it. You go, what?
I mean, like, there's two ways to go about this, in the sense where there's people that I just didn't expect to come back for reality TV in general, and B, people that I didn't expect to be going on like the challenge. And one person in particular that screamed that to me was Azza from Big Brother 23, who I'm pretty sure like right after her Big Brother season ended, she went on record saying that's it. That's my reality TV story. Like, you know, it was fun to open the book. The book's closed now. Like, I read on Twitter, she tweeted about it. She's like, yeah, like at first I didn't want to go on any shows. And she said something like they gave her the call in like November and she said no. And then a few months passed and then she was given another call and was like, you know what, like, let me give it another shot, which I thought was really cool. I was like, you don't usually see people change their mind that fast. But that was the biggest shock to me, where I was like, I just did not expect it at all. But Xavier, the winner of the last Big Brother season, didn't really give off the vibe that he wanted to keep competing and like playing these shows. So that was another one where it was like a pleasant surprise. He's extremely built. I think he would be like do really good on this show, and I just wasn't expecting. And then on the Survivor side of things, most of these players just shocked me in general. Dominic was a big shock to me as well, where it's like all these players, which I'm happy to see a lot of these. Like Desi is not someone I expected to see on my screen again. And I'm so happy that like she got the call, she accepted, and like she's on the cast, where it's like that one was out of left field for me, but I'm so here for it. Like that's such a happy shock. But really anybody outside of the Survivor 41 players, Danny and Shan, I was pretty shocked to see come over to this.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up Dominic, because we haven't really seen Dominic. He got second place on his season with Wendell, and you would think he would be like a shoe-in to have gotten another Survivor season at some point. I mean, if they were going to do like a second chances, he would have been the one to call. And for him to not even get on Survivor and then to get this call for the Challenge USA, I was like, yo, what? Yeah. Who do you think is the most equipped to bring their skills and their talents into the challenge and possibly succeed? Right
off the bat, in my opinion, I think Danny from Survivor 41 is the most well-equipped. And a lot of that just comes from the fact that he played in the NFL for many years. He isn't just like this Joe Schmo that got up off the couch to go and play Survivor. He has a background playing football at like the highest level possible. Like, he's no stranger to competition. He's super well built. Socially and strategically, he did quite well on Survivor. Like, he is a huge triple threat all the way around. I think I mentioned her before. I think Desi is a great fit for the challenge. She competed, I think she only competed in like 2 individual immunities, but she won the first one. She looks great, like in great shape for this. So I think she's also going to do better in the challenge than she did in Survivor. And then with Big Brother, I've got Angela, who was a almost Olympic pole vaulter, I want to say. Like, she's also has like that competitive background before she went on. And then on Big Brother, she won many competitions. Like, she was really good. Also, like I said earlier, Xavier, super well built. He won Big Brother, so like he's good strategically, he's good socially, very strong, did great in competitions. Like, I think those players are going to have an easier time transitioning to the challenge as opposed to somebody like a Dominic that shocked me when I initially saw.
Okay, so I'm very happy to hear your 4 players, because me, Chantel, and Chris did a fantasy draft, and it took 2 hours, and majority of those 2 hours was me freaking out about every single pick, because I had no idea who to pick, when they were being picked, who to pick. But I did pick Danny and Xavier out of the 4, so I'm happy with your
definitely
professional
good
opinion. I'm happy that 2 of my people that you mentioned are the best equipped. I will say that I want to add 2 people, or just throw in my 2 cents on 2 people, and that is Sarah from Survivor. I just think I have the most confidence in Survivor in general coming on to do the challenge. I think for whatever show that is on this season, Survivor I always think is a better 1-for-1 comparison to the challenge than, say, Big Brother is with their like competitions, or Love Island, of course, and Amazing Race. We've kind of talked about it. It's kind of like a wild card. I don't know how well their show equips them for something like this. So I think when it comes down to Survivor, they're more equipped coming on to do the challenge. So I would say Sarah is also a very physical person, that if I put her in a hall brawl against majority of this cast, I feel like she could win in a hall brawl, or like a pole wrestle, or something to that effect. Maybe Angela and Desi could give her a real fight to the very end, where maybe it's like a coin toss of who could win against Sarah. But I just think Sarah's going to be really strong. And then Cinco, you talked about Danny playing sports at a high level. I think Cinco played college football at least, and the dude looks jacked. He looks like he can step on a football field now. So
yeah, he is. I mean, we'll talk. I'll talk about Cinco a little bit more later, but yeah, total agree there with Cinco.
Well, maybe I'm throwing his name out too early, because again, we were talking about Love Island. I don't know how well equipped Love Island is going to fear, but he has that competitiveness, he has that drive, he has that intimidation factor. So I'm just going to throw Cinco in there, being like, I'm happy to see him back. We talked about the best equipped. Who do you think is the least equipped to come onto the show?
I was just talking about how he's one of the people that I'm very excited to watch, but David from Big Brother, very concerned that he didn't watch the show. And I mean, like, this is like a different, like the format could be so different that's not as much of a disadvantage as it was for him not watching Big Brother before going on Big Brother. Like, maybe the challenge will show that he's much like better competitor than like the carnival-esque games on Big Brother. But just like right off the rip, he's one that I'm a little bit concerned about being, not well equipped for the show. So originally, when I was thinking about it, like on the Survivor side of things, like who I thought was the least equipped, I was thinking Ben. But even though I think Ben might be the least equipped, I still think he's probably more equipped than a lot of the other players from the other shows.
The only worry about Ben is that he seemed to have like a short fuse, especially on Winners at War. Him and Jeremy were like butting heads at one point on the show, and they were like so tunnel visioned on each other. At least Ben was on Jeremy, wanting to take out Jeremy. And I worry that in a house setting with 20 or 27 other people, I was going to say 20 people, with 27 other people, I just have a weird feeling that Ben is just going to get on as like, start to irritate people. He's going to be irritant to other players. And then all of a sudden he's going to be seeing elimination after elimination. Who do you think will make it past week 3 in your opinion? I don't want to say who do you think will be the first boot, but who do you think is just going to be probably targeted and then kind of be the first first 1, 2, 3 won't make it very deep into the season, in your opinion? When you look at this cast, the makeup, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, first off, I just want to say that the way that question is worded, I think is really good. It's not who's the first boot. It's like, who's just going to be targeted early enough where like we feel like you're giving them that like a little bit of a buffer where it's not like, oh, if they're not the first boot, I'm totally wrong. But like I was saying earlier, the Amazing Race only have 3 players instantly is like, okay, like it does stand out a little bit when there's only 3 from this show. I don't know how well these Amazing Racers really know each other. They have to guess that one of the Amazing Racers are going to end up being, and my pick would probably be James. But no, like take that with grains of salt because like I said, I don't really know these players that much, but I think with just the Amazing Race difference, we'll call it, only having 3 people, I don't have too much faith in him, coming out of a hall brawl on top. So he would be my pick, but that is probably out of all the questions we've talked about so far, that's probably the one I'm least confident in, just because of my lack of knowledge for the Amazing Racers.
And I definitely agree with you that I think the Amazing Race will be a target early. It's just going to be if somebody can get in good and possibly be the swing vote. Because at least with the Survivor players, they know like if there is a voting process, they could use all the numbers that they can. I mean, Big Brother knows that as well.
Yeah, like you see a 3 and instead of like there's 2 ways to think about it. It's like, oh, they're the easy 3 to go after first, or oh, that's 3 more numbers on my side.
We talked about players that may not make it very. Oh, I didn't give my answer. I'm gonna say Cashel from Love Island season 1. I don't have high hopes for him. He didn't have that great of showing on Love Island season 1. I'm just gonna throw him out there. I just don't think he's gonna really fit into the whole crowd. Let's move over to who do you think is a shoe-in for the final?
So this was one that I had probably spent the longest amount of time thinking about this question. If I have to pick one on the men's side, I'm going to go with Xavier only because of the Big Brother 23 factor. Having 6 players from Big Brother 23, 3 of them he was, well, actually no, 4 of them he was very closely aligned with. Only Derek X is someone that he wasn't really aligned with super closely in his season, and like even like to like a wider extent he was kind of aligned with them, but he has like many of his like number ones from Big Brother coming over to him or coming over with him onto this. So I think with everything, I think he can win elimination. I think he can avoid seeing elimination, and I think he could win like dailies and stuff to like have a lot of power, get people to his side. I think he is a shoo-in for the finals. And then for the women, I think Tasha from Survivor. I haven't really talked about her much yet, but she's very fit, very likable. I see her having like what it takes. Like I could see Tasha going into 3 eliminations and coming out on top on all 3. So like even if she isn't able to like keep herself out of elimination, I could totally see her being that person that goes in, wins over and over. And I could definitely see her making it to the final as well.
I will say that, again, my fantasy draft, I was really uncomfortable. I wasn't very confident in myself, but my first pick was Tasha, and then I picked Xavier at one point. So I'm feeling pretty good now.
Tasha, I like that.
Yeah, I love Tasha. I'm so happy she's back. I mean, talk about a shocker. Love her on Cagayan, loved her on Second Chances, and so happy when they were leaking out that she was possibly on this season. I was like, there's no way. Like, I can't believe it.
Me too. I was like, there's like, it hasn't even been that long, but like when you look at everyone else and like they're all from the most recent seasons, where it's like, man, like I'm surprised that they're reaching that far back.
Yeah.
But I'm so, because I like you said, I loved Tasha on her seasons, and she was a beast in challenges. Like, I think she's a great pick.
I want to throw this out there, and it was something that kind of got in my mind. It's one of the most talked about scenes from the past Big Brother season is when Kyland was eliminated from the game, and him and Xavier were face to face. They are back on the same show now. You talked about how Xavier might have the Big Brother 23 all behind him. What do you think about Kyland and Xavier? Because I think it was very salty the last time we did see them like on camera together. And I think it was a little uncomfortable. Do you think that they would have mended bridges or have been able to come to an agreement maybe coming into the season. Maybe they'll have like, we need to work together to get far into the season, but I feel like there's always going to be something in the back of their minds going like, he's going to try to snake me before we get too far into this game. I'm going to have to go after him. Do you think that that's at play with them being on the season together?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. I think out of like the Big Brother players, like that's something that I think we gotta watch for the most, because a lot of these players were very like kumbaya a lot of the times, but that was like, when that happened, it was very out of left field. Like I was surprised. Everyone was shocked. Like it was a scene. It definitely was something. Now I know after the fact, at least on paper, I've seen like a video where Xavier, once he got his winnings, I think he bought everyone in the Cookout Alliance, I think it was like watches or something, like engraved watches. Like at least in that 40-second video, it didn't seem like there was any bad blood at that time. That's not to say that that's the end all be all. I have no idea. There very much could still be stuff. And even when you take that out of the equation, just competitively, those two were very neck and neck the whole, like at the end of the season, they both won the same number of comps. They each won 3 HOHs and they each won 3 vetoes. So they're very equal in terms of how they did in the competitions. And for a lot of the season, Kylan was just edging out Xavier in these competitions. So Kylan was the better competitor. So it could still, like, maybe there's like a little chip on the shoulder where it's like, you bested me in this comp, you bested me in this comp. Xavier would throw a lot of competitions, but then once he was like, this is it, like in the diary room, he's saying like, now is the time that I'm going to start winning these comps. Now I'm going to start trying. And Kylan beat him in 3 in a row. And it's like, not to say that that's really anything, but if I can just imagine if I were on one of these shows and I'm like, this is it, time to dig deep. I'm going to win all of these comps. And then someone beats me 3 times in a row. In the back of my head, I'm going to be like, I know you aren't really thinking there's this rivalry, but in my head, I'm like, I got to beat you now just for my own sake. Like if they still do have lingering issues, hey, go solve it in elimination. As Turbo said to Jordan that one time, there's a place where we can settle these things.
And I'm not going to lie, I never really gave it any thought about possibly a Kylan versus Xavier elimination. But when you said that they could possibly go up against each other, there was like a chill that went down my spine. And it was like, yes, I want to see this happen. Because you brought up the 40-second video. I didn't really dive too deep into other shows or behind the scenes. I kind of watched casually the Big Brother stuff this past season. I really enjoyed it, much better than the past iterations of Big Brother. And then I kind of saw Xavier get the final win, and then I was like, cool, I'm just going to shut it down, and then I'll see these players when I see them, kind of thing. So you bring up the videos and the background scenes, I really enjoy it. But when given that watch to him or taking that video, that's not in the game. So to me, I'm sitting there going like, yeah, he can be all happy and good. But once you get into the game, I think that thought of, because they both are very competitive, that thought of like, okay, you bested me once, I'm not going to let it happen again. We can be fine right now, but once I can get that edge on you, it's gloves off. And I think that's where it's going to really come into it. Like, I think that they will come in playing nice with each other. And then all of a sudden it'll just turn and be like, all right, I got to get the best of them. Like, I can't just let them skate all the way to the end kind of thing again. But Xavier is such a strong competitor, in my opinion. I think we both are in agreement with Xavier just being a very strong competitor coming into the season, both strategically, physically, mentally. I do want to bring up one person that we haven't brought up yet. And I feel like she could possibly be the nucleus of a lot of different alliances. And that is Tiffany. I think it was a smart get Tiffany on this Challenge USA season because she won fan favorite or house guest of America. And she got the money. And then she's been like going everywhere. She's been taking a lot of Instagram pictures with a lot of the players that we're going to be seeing on this show, with Cinco, with some of the Love Island players, some of the Survivor players. We talked about political games. You brought up political games. I mean, I would think that her social game and possibly political game is almost unmatched, at least preseason wise. What do you think about Tiffany coming on to the Challenge USA?
No, that's a bunch of really great points. And another thing to keep in mind here is that going into Big Brother 23, when these players didn't even know each other, within the first couple of weeks, Tiffany was in the best position and it wasn't even close. Like Tiffany had connections with everybody, and the people that she didn't have connections with went home. So like even without knowing these people, she was the best at forming these bonds, making these connections, turning those bonds into game connections, working that political game. And then on top of that, she's coming into the game with all of these good, already established connections with all of the different shows. So it's even to the point where she's coming in with these good graces with everybody. And then if there's some players that she's not in, like that she doesn't really know, like I don't know how well she knows James from The Amazing Race, but she's already proven that she doesn't need that advantage of knowing them beforehand. She's already shown that she is one of the best players at making those initial connections with the people that she doesn't know. She very much could be the biggest political threat out of anybody.
Another Big Brother player that has crazy social game that we have not brought up, and it kind of surprises me that he is on this season. It's Enzo. Enzo, I felt like coming into All Stars 2, season 22, he was able to play a social game after not being on Big Brother for like 10 seasons. And I felt like he could really slip under the radar, get everybody connected with him, really play a good social game with people not knowing exactly what kind of game he plays, because he did play a game with a big alliance, and then it was 10 seasons ago comparatively to everybody else. He's coming onto this show, a more physical show. I think he's also one of the older competitors, and he just played like 2 seasons ago. Do you think he'll be able to come in and play the same social game? And do you think it would work coming onto the Challenge USA?
Yeah, the thing with Enzo is that I was in one of my last videos that I made, I talked about this. Enzo, in my opinion, is the best social player of all time in Big Brother. His ability to just like talk to anybody, make him feel like you're his best friend, like without even trying. It's just who Enzo is. The issue with Enzo is that he never capitalizes on what he gains by being so social. He has all these ties with everybody. He has if he wanted to make something happen, he has the people behind him, but he always takes the back seat. He's like, I'm in good graces with everybody. I'm just going to let things play out how they are because I'm good with everybody. He's not taking the initiative.
I love that you brought up that he can get the numbers but never capitalizes on it, because I always was like, what is the deal with Enzo? Like, he's almost too loyal to a fault when it came down to it, and I think that's exactly what it was. But yeah, I think Enzo really helped out, or his strength was getting to talk to players, making them believe that he's with them, and then them not talking to anybody else, being like, if anybody would have just brought up his name and been like, I have a thing with him too. Oh, he has a thing with you too? You too? Like, I feel like his whole game would have crumbled. I'm wondering if that's going to play a part in here, because as we were talking about, like with Tiffany, and there's a lot of commingling that has happened. If Enzo starts talking too much to too many players, and then they all start to commingle in the game and bring up his name, I feel like that could paint a target on his back. Let's wrap this up with the final question. We can go over our winner picks. Who is our men pick and our women pick to see who is going to win this Challenge USA at this moment? If you want to go first, you can go first.
I mean, the biggest thing, especially with finals, is you got to keep endurance in mind. Who is someone that I think can make it to the end and have it in them to, win a final, like mostly outrun, I should say. But the endurance is a huge part. If you don't have the endurance, you're not going to win the final. And I've been talking a lot about Xavier, how I think he's a shoe-in to win the final. I think he's got great endurance. So for the guys, I am going to have to go with Xavier.
I'm going to say Xavier as well. It's hard to vote against or go against Survivor. Like I said, I think it's 1v1, but just seeing Xavier and his talents and the way he dominated Big Brother 23 and coming on to the Challenge USA, it's just hard seeing a competitor like him and not him making it to the finals and not winning it outright against everybody who is on this cast. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of big beasts on this cast. I mean, you got Cinco, you got the winners on the Survivor side, but put him against anybody in elimination, and I got Xavier. I got my money on Xavier. I think he's going to be able to bob and weave throughout this whole season. So in my opinion, I'm going to say Xavier, and it's not just because he's on my fantasy team and I hope that he wins because I have him on there, but I really do think that he is such a strong competitor. And just think if Xavier wins the Challenge USA after winning Big Brother 23, like he's just like a dominant figure. I would hope to see him. If that happens, I would love to see him on MTV's The Challenge, because it's like, why not? At that point,
keep it rolling, see how far you can go. Now, for the women, I am going on the Survivor side of things. And it's funny because I actually know the least about this person of any of the Survivor players. But I'm going to go with Desi. I just think that she is so well suited for, like, I think she's going to do so much better on this show than she did on Survivor. I think just like the competitiveness, I'm going to be totally like blatant straight up. Her cast photo is what pushed her over the edge for me. She looks so like that is a winner's stance right there. She looks in great shape. Like just like the way that she looks like she could run forever. Like it looks like she is just going to be an endurance monster. I have total faith in her being able to make it to the final. She looks strong, especially like there are women on this cast where like the Tiffany's or like maybe the Shans from Survivor, where they don't look like the most physical, but I could still see them winning eliminations. I could see Desi winning any type of elimination. So like I have faith in her in getting to the final, and I have faith in her being able to just outright beat the other players in the final.
So since you brought up Desi and you did a great job describing why you think she will go far in this season, I'll go into Sarah and say that I think Sarah is a strong competitor. I mean, she comes onto Survivor looking muscled out. She is good at puzzles. She was incredible on Game Changers. She made it very far into Winners at War. I think 4th place. I mean, she was there.
Almost won. One fire away from winning that as well. It's crazy. And she's coming on to a season with Ben, her like ride or die number 1 from that season. She's going to be with Tyson. I think she will have a big old target on her back because she is a winner. She has this resume on her side, but again, like I said earlier, throw her into a hall brawl, throw her into a pole wrestle, and I think she will be very strong and very tough to beat. I mean, if you see her, any pictures of her, she's in the gym all the time, and we know that she can do puzzles. So honestly, if she's not going up against Desi, I'll put my money on Sarah, because I think it could be a coin flip between Sarah and Desi. But looking at the rest of the cast, I feel like she could outmuscle any other woman on this cast besides Desi. I think we did great with our picks, if I do say so myself. I mean, it's us. So I mean, I feel like I'm going to be biased, but I think we did pretty well. Let's start wrapping things up. Where can everybody find you, whether it's on YouTube or social media, and what do you have coming up in the future? On YouTube, I'm Ethanimale. Common spelling, of course. Twitter, basically the same thing, at It's Ethan Doyle, but you could also search Ethanimale. I'll show up there. And then for what I got coming, I mean, Big Brother starts in a month. Super stoked for that. I'm probably going to be doing some sort of like live streaming stuff, talking about it in the beginning, at least, like watching the episodes. As for videos, I've got a little series coming along, just talking about like going in depth about like the greatest duo pairs in Big Brother. So for the people that don't know Big Brother, you're not really going to know what I'm saying right here, but I got a video about Chilltown and also a video about the Hitmen that I've got in the works, kind of comparing what's the best duo that's ever happened. But I'm excited. So this was super fun. Like I'm very just appreciative of just like reaching out. This is really fun. And maybe like when the show is getting, I guess, broadcasted, I guess, yeah, it started the same day as Big Brother. I forget. They're back to back premiering at the same time. But maybe like when it's like close to wrapping up or after the fact, if you want to like talk about the season as a whole and like how our predictions went or just something like that, I would be super down for. So.
Oh, heck yeah, for sure. And maybe we could even do like a mid-season mid-season,
Yeah.
pop in, kind of check in and stuff. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this was really fun to do, and we're going to probably get 3 months, probably the length of Big Brother, talking about the challenge USA. So, I mean, I'm always down. This was really fun. I had a great time, and you know me. I mean, I do 45 minutes on a trailer breakdown that's like 60 seconds long. So, I mean, I could talk about the challenge for hours. So, I really appreciate it, and that we were able to connect on this one, because this was a lot of fun. So thank you again, everybody. Go check out Ethanimale. Even if you don't watch Big Brother yet, go check it out. He has some incredible videos, and and he'll be back on the channel very soon, probably talking about more Challenge USA and more challenge stuff. And thank you again for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks.
And before ending this video, I want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. And thank you so much for everybody who watched this video up to this point. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.